Alright, I'm back to continue the story then. This chapter's called The Broken Speaker. Marvin tripped over the protruding lip of a cracked and badly sunken paving slab. He looked around in his embarrassment, but all he saw was the face of a shaggy-haired man. It seemed peculiar to him, and so he studied the marked man's face for a brief moment without looking directly into the eyes. He seldom liked to make eye contact with strangers. The face was a reflection in the glass of a shop window belonging to a music shop. The weird thing was, it was perfectly framed within the body of a hanging Gibson bass guitar. The outer piping of the vintage wooden body of the four-string bass formed a perfect border around the shaggy-haired man's countenance. The man was nicknamed Gluey, and was about to enter heaven-sent sounds. Marvin scuttled on as he absent-mindedly wandered away from the cobalt blue drum kit in the window. It had been a white-hot day in the mostly concrete and treeless city. Gluey was conscientious of the fact that sweat marks were forming around the thick fabric of his lilac-coloured work shirt. He kept his arms by his sides to try and avoid the embarrassment of detection. Not that anybody gave a rat's ass around these parts. His navy-coloured wool trousers were scratching his sensitive skin, and he couldn't wait to do his thing and get back to his shared accommodation, so to strip them off and throw on his sun-kissed and comfortable cargo shorts. He patted the button-up back pocket to check his fat wallet was where it should be. It was. The shop was a little cooler inside, but difficult to navigate. Where there was floor space, there was an instrument heating it up. Pedals, a mixing desk, PA speakers, kick drums and cymbals were stacked and packed from wall to ceiling, almost. Gluey looked over just about every piece of equipment and made mental notes of bass cabs and quarter-inch jack-to-jack leads. He caught sight of a beautiful Indian teak violin and instantly fell in love. He couldn't play one yet, but later in life he would own the very same after working hard to save for it. Technical gadgets of varying colours were distracting his attention from the job in hand. He was here for something specific. A smeared glass cabinet further entranced a 24-year-old part-time musician, and the wool of his trousers continued to bug him. The saxophone on the bottom shelf was lying seductively across green baize cloth. It shone and shimmered like the golden summer sun. Gluey imagined himself blowing the mint-conditioned sax in a smoky jazz joint across the big pond. He wore an earth-coloured two-piece suit, a deep tan fedora, a crisp white shirt and a skinny blue tie and tie-pin combo. As he played, he felt the swish of the hot ladies in 50s dresses that were dancing with pure joy to his impassioned notes. Gluey snapped out of his daydream. The saxophone was out of his price range, and he didn't have the lungs or lips for it, or the courage to travel to the USA. So he shook his head and walked towards Fats, who was nursing a heavy metal monthly magazine at the counter. Steve Fatsrill fingered the glossy page he was reading lightly, before lowering the page so slowly as if it were a drifting snowflake heading for a safe landing on a pillow. His eyes and then his face descended with the page, his finger balancing it from underneath as he read the last word of the riveting article entitled The Birth of Thrash. Fats slammed his fist down on the now-closed magazine atop his counter and looked up with a thoughtful expression, connecting his piercing blue eyes to those of Gluey. "You look shattered, mate. Burning the candle at both ends, are we?" asked the heavily bearded lead guitarist and shop owner. You know how it is, Fats. I try to grab as much recording time and beer as possible before Groundhog Day points me back to work. Are you still at the same place then? I am, yeah. It's okay, I suppose. Guy I work with told me I sees a card. It pays good and I can do the job without too much hassle. Mind you, I think work's tapering off for me now. Anyway, our tricks here. Gluey rubbed his thigh. It subsided for a spell. Not too good this week. Some twat ran in and grabbed the Telecaster. He was gone before I could register belief. It's not as if I could catch him with his little fat legs. So that was that. I'd spend an hour filling out a crummy statement with a young copper that looked like Joe 90. Steve blew out a disgruntled blast of pepperoni tinged air. Reddish spittle flew out and the fleck landed on Gluey's shirt lapel. Gluey laughed. Is this free? Gluey asked. Or do I need to sign for it on HP? Ha, sorry man. Fat shot out a stubby fingered hand and pinched Gluey's collar. He rubbed his spittle off quickly. The pair of them laughed as they continued talking for a while. Steve had been robbed 3 times that week, so it was over at noon when Gluey pulled out his stuffed wallet and began to count out a wad of notes for the near-field studio monitors he wanted. Steve yanked a little white sold label off, packed and boxed a pair of speakers and slammed the heavy box onto the thick countertop. He threw in another pair of wooden cabinet handmade stereo speakers for free. Gluey figured that was generous, but knew there must be a slight catch. He looked quizzically at Fats, without saying anything. There's a slight buzz on one of the bass counts. I think it's your left, mate, so I'm chucking these in for you. Cool enough? Grabbing the collar of his thick black leather bomber jacket, Steve swished his mane with a wild shake of his head, stood the collar up, and his thick, long ginger hair settled and held it back in its place, slash style. Yeah man, that sound. Cheers, Steve, said the 24-year-old. He smiled at Fats, but was secretly hoping he'd not overspent on a battered and faulty speaker. I'd better phone a taxi then, said Gluey, as he slipped the tiny mobile from his pocket and poked the worn-out speed dial button. Outside of Heaven Sent Sounds, Gluey stood curbside and leaned forward. He saw the face of Marvin peering back at him via the back window glass of the white taxi. It was expressionless. Gluey loaded the boat up alone and figured he'd still tip the lazy Indian driver. He lifted the back door, black handle, and then jumped onto the available seat, slammed the door to and then belted up. It wouldn't be the first time he'd shared a ride with a stranger. Where you headed? Asked the heavily scented driver. Gluey took a nasal hit of the cumin spice and replied, 2 miles forward in a straight line, left at crossroads, and on towards the Maserati garage. You can drop me there, please. Okay, I know that one. The driver nodded his weary head whilst yawning and observing through his rearview mirror, before pulling out into a busy lane and causing the Vauxhall Astra driver by his side to brake sharply. The Indian driver hadn't seemed to notice he was being overtaken at the time. Horns and hooters had been commonplace in Calcutta, where he learned his trade as a driver. They meant little to him. Nobody spoke a further word until drop-off time, and then it was only to converse for the sake of it, exchanging notes and coins. Gluey told the driver to wait before getting out of the vehicle and slamming the door. He squeezed the boot catch handle and lifted out his 4 heavy speakers. He dumped them at his feet by its side of the road and then slammed the boot back down. He slapped on the roof of the taxi to signal for the driver to pull away, and as he did so, Gluey caught another glance of the troubled face of Marvin. As the car pulled out into the busy traffic, the taxi driver didn't see the double-decker bus. It had just cut up. A red-faced bus driver honked his horn at the Indian taxi driver and then later reported by a passenger of his public transport vehicle for his wonderfully creative use of foul language. The bus driver, also known as Stressed Derek, couldn't care a toss. That was his 9th warning for that year. A new department record. Before his 10th warning, he told the tutor of his anger management course that he was an overpaid goon with a face like a baboon smacked horse. Gluey struggled with his speakers over to the converted and end terrace home via the damaged wooden gate and weed-strewn path. He unlocked the back door, relocked it, humped the speakers up to his attic room, unlocked his bedroom door and relocked it so his apathetic housemate, Stan, didn't pester him. He hooked up the new monitors. The monitors were quality and the slight buzz wasn't a major issue for Gluey. He mostly monitored his recordings on 2020 headphones anyway. The speakers were really just for the final mix playback and for listening to whatever tunes he fancied playing, his own or other artists' music. The handmade speakers, on the other hand, never spoke a sound. Over a decade of having them, Gluey only have carted them around the country in a removal vans, or used them as makeshift tabletops for mugs of hot beverages and loose plectrums. By midnight, the part-time musician had recorded 6 tracks of sound, mixed a new song and had fallen asleep in a stupor, whilst the chilled-out tune played on a repetitive loop until 5:26 a.m. When the heavy-headed worker awoke, he was to shut his recording system down. He'd been hypnotised by the words in his sleep, and the strange lyric sheet that depicted bipolar conditioning puzzled Gluey. He couldn't remember writing a word of it. The following tea time, he studied the sheet some more, and despite it being evidently written in his own hand, he had absolutely no recognition of having penned the multiple verses. By the time of his death, some years further down the line, the song had been heard by almost 1 million people. The creator of it had never earned a single penny from the song. He believed musical ideas came to him for free, and so he sent his fresh interpretation of those ideas back out into the world as tunes for free via download. The straw-blonde, short-cut, soft-haired female paramedic that witnessed Gluey die was so saddened at the end of a shift she broke down in tears for a second time that day and asked if she could take a week off. The manager gave her leave without a hitch. The kindly Mr. Mullins knew she'd had a stressful time of late. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in a little while for chapter 3. Smack Connection.